Okay, this is going to be a really quick video tutorial on how to export a QuickTime movie out of Harmony and import it into After Effects and loop it really easily in After Effects for export. And so you can see I have a little bit of a longer looping animation right here for my kind of Halloween themed animation. This can be really useful for walk cycles, for instance. So for a walk cycle, you might only have just like a second and a half of animation that you want to loop later. And so this is a technique that can be really helpful for that. So let's get started. Um, so I'm going to remove my kind of creepy background right there. And so most of you might have animated on a gray, clear background like this. And if you've done that, when you export the QuickTime, it's going to come out as a black background with, most of the time when you draw, you're drawing with black pencils or dark pencils, so it's going to be black on black. And so if you're exporting a QuickTime, you want to create a color card. And let me just delete this one so I can show you how to create a color card. So you want to create the color card by pressing this plus button and then going down to color card right there. And I'll just drag it down to the bottom. And the color card, when it's selected, you can see I have it highlighted in my timeline. It's this gray square, the series of gray squares in front of a white background. But if I just click on one of my drawings, you can see it's just a plain white background. It gives a plain white background, so when we export, we'll be able to see our animation. And so I'll press play, and so we can see my spider come across. And so it kind of wraps around one time and then disappears. I want it to loop back, just like what I'm doing with this looping button right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this QuickTime. So I'm going to go File, Export, and then let's see here, where is it? Sorry, Movie. So File, Export, and then Movie. And under the video format, we're going to have some options right here. And the option that I recommend is the H.264. This is a kind of QuickTime movie that is a really common video codec that just, in my experience, seems to have the best luck. And so we're going to, under this drop-down menu, choose H.264. And I'm just going to call this online demo. And I'm just going to throw this right onto the desktop of my computer. And right here we can see the length is frame 1 to frame 182. And so where this red bracket is usually going to indicate where your render is going to stop exporting. So if you want it to be a different number, you can just type in a different number right there. And I'm kind of working in a 4K resolution for this particular project, so that's fine for me right there. But most of the time you might want 1920 by 1080, and that all looks good. So I'm going to press OK, and it's going to render out. Um, uh, okay, so I was working in a really high resolution right there, and so that's the reason it gave me that error message. So most of the time you're going to be working in 1920 by 1080. Let me just see if this came out. So this is the movie file, and I'm going to open it with a QuickTime player just to make sure that this came out okay. That looks great. Okay, so let's bring this into After Effects, and we're going to loop this in After Effects because you can see this QuickTime, it stops at 8 seconds long, and I want this to loop. So let's go ahead and open up After Effects. And the way After Effects works is it links to it links to files. And so if I start an After Effects project and I don't set up a project folder correctly, I won't be able to reopen this again. And so just keep that in mind if you're new to After Effects. You really want to get in the habit of creating a project folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and on my desktop and make a new folder. And I'm just going to call this After Effects online demo. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw that movie file that we exported into it. And if I wanted to be really organized with my After Effects projects, a lot of times I'll create a very detailed folder structure in here, particularly if I'm working on a larger project. But since this is just a quick online demo, I'm just going to keep it simple right there. All right, so looking at After Effects, the way that this interface is set up is we have let's see here, the project window. So we're eventually going to drop our movie file into there. We have our composition area. We have this area to the right where you should see a preview tab, and this is where we can play back and test our animations. And then we have our timeline down here where we can stack multiple layers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on my online demo movie that I just exported out of Harmony, and then drag it into my project window. And if I click on the QuickTime file or the H.264 file, you can see it deresed my export a little bit, which again for this online demo is fine. In 24 frames per second is the frame rate that I wanted, and you can see it's 7 seconds long and 14 frames. And so it's 7 seconds long and 14 frames, but I want this thing to loop. And so the way to do that is I'm going to click on this interpret footage icon at the bottom. So I'm clicking on my movie file, and I'm then going down and I'm looking for this button. And if I hover over it, it says interpret footage, and I'll click on that. And so this is a really helpful area of After Effects to know about. So if you need to like change your alpha channel or something, you can do that here. You can set your frame rate right there if it came in at the wrong frame rate. But down here at the bottom, this is what I'm mainly trying to show, is right now it's set to loop 1 time. And if I delete that, and let's say I want this to loop 4 times before the animation ends, I type in 4, and I'll press OK. And so now this is a 30-second long animation. And so now to create a looping animation, all I need to do is I just click on my movie file, drag it onto this new composition icon, and let go. And now I have a composition After Effects that's 30 seconds long. And if I press play, I won't make us watch the whole thing, but we can see that this thing's going to play once, and then it keeps looping over and over again. And so for a walk cycle, this can be really useful, right? And so that's kind of how to set up a looping animation from Harmony in After Effects. And the final thing I'm going to show is just how to export this. And so the way I like to export out of After Effects is I send it to Media Encoder. So I've already opened Media Encoder in the background. And when you open up Media Encoder, we have these windows, and notice that this area is empty. And so I'm going to send my movie from After Effects to Media Encoder, and it's going to show up right there in just a minute. So I have After Effects. I'm going to go to Composition and Add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. And I'll move over to the Media Encoder queue, and it'll usually take it a second to populate. This is a 30-second animation, so it's taking a little bit longer, but there you go. And we can change all the settings right here if we want to, but I will say these settings that it comes with are already pretty solid with the H.264 and the match source high bitrate. But if you wanted to, you can click on this, and let's see, I'll just give it one moment. And I can change the codec, so I can choose between all kinds of different codecs if I'm trying to export into different programs, all that stuff. But again, for my class, for final exports, all these default settings are great. And the main things you want to concern yourself with is we can name and set our location right here. And then once we've done that, we'll press this green play button and it'll render for us. So I'll click right there. And I'm going to save this onto the online demo project right here. And I'm just going to call this export 1 and press save. And then I'll just press this play button. And so if you're in one of my classes, be sure to take that opportunity to name the file correctly. And all right, so we click right here, and I'm going to open with QuickTime, and you can see I have a 30-second long animation that continues to loop.